We've got breaking news out of the NFL. Jets linebacker Haason Reddick has requested a trade. That's been confirmed by our Jonathan Jones. The news comes just over 4 months after New York acquired the former All-Pro linebacker from Philadelphia for a conditional third-round pick. Reddick's been holding out since training camp. Did not play in the Jets' preseason opener Saturday against the Commanders. Our lead NFL insider reporting no contract talks have been held between his camp and the Jets, leading to this request, as Reddick has just 1 year remaining on his current deal, making $15 million this upcoming season. And joining us now with the breaking news is Lige Douzable. Duz, what are you thinking? What's your instant reaction to learning about the news?
Tommy, my Jets just can't have a quiet offseason. That's my initial thought. But there's so much to break down with this Haason Reddick and him asking for a trade. One, Tommy, this has to be a record for a player asking for a trade from multiple teams in one offseason. But two, Haason Reddick knows that he has a bit of leverage with the New York Jets, right? This is a scenario where he wants a new deal. That's why he asked for the trade from the Philadelphia Eagles. I know a lot of people are asking, well, if the Jets knew when he requested a trade he wanted a new deal, why wasn't a deal put in place? And you see his production right here. Look at what he's done, right? 4 consecutive seasons, Tommy, with 10+ sacks. Matter of fact, I'll go even further. He's had 50.5 sacks the last 4 years. There's only 3 other players that have had more. Trey Hendrickson, you look at also Myles Garrett, right, and TJ Watt. Those 2 top guys were Defensive Player of the Year. So that lets you know what Haason Reddick means to a guy, as far as a guy rushing the quarterback and getting after him. And then look at the pay between the guys that I just mentioned and Haason Reddick. He is grossly underpaid. Some of the top edge rushers are making upwards of $28+ million now. So I think Nick Bosa's around $35 million. So if you're Haason Reddick, yes, you're about to turn 30 years old, but you're still doing it at an elite level. So as a player, the one thing you could do when you're going through a negotiation is refuse to play. Hold back your services. That's the only leverage you essentially have as a player, and that's essentially what Haason Reddick is doing. Didn't show up for minicamp, didn't show up for training camp. Now, he's accruing a lot of fines, so it's interesting because, and look, Tommy, right there, he ain't got no worries. He got the samurai sword. He's cosplaying in Japan. He knows what he brings to a football team. But again, he's accruing all these fines. That is the interesting thing. Even if he does get paid, we saw this play out with Chris Jones last year. A lot of the money that he got, even though the Chiefs kind of changed up his last year of his deal, a lot of that went to fines. So essentially the same thing would happen with Haason Reddick right now because the fines he's accruing. I think that's the leverage that the Jets are trying to use right now. Even if they were to tweak his last year of his deal, and I think that's something that ultimately will happen with Haason Reddick and the Jets, he's going to accrue so many fines that all the money that he would have made will go to the fine. So this is a scenario that I think plays out. Hopefully it doesn't go all the way to week 1. Again, this has to be a record for a player requesting a trade, not from one team, but from a second team as well.
Yeah, that video of Reddick's probably going to be a little bit better than Chris Jones at McDonald's last year when Chris Jones was waiting to get paid, which he did, by the way. Flip side, an organization you know well. Structurally here, how much does Joe Douglas take in terms of responsibility for what's taking place?
Definitely, I can tell you Jet Nation isn't happy about this, Tommy, because the biggest thing they were saying was you didn't re-sign Bryce Huff, who was a young, emerging talent. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles. You traded John Franklin Myers, who was one of the most underrated stars on that defense. And everybody thought you were doing that so you could pay a guy like Haason Reddick, and you didn't pay him yet. So that's the big question mark. If you know anything about Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, and Robert Saleh, this defense is based off the defensive line creating havoc, right? And Haason Reddick is one of the best closers in the game. They need him to be that closer because Bryce Huff essentially was that for them last year. He was their guy that came in on 3rd down and got after the quarterback and had 10 sacks. Well, Haason Reddick takes it up a notch because he's not only one of the best guys getting after the quarterback, he's one of the best guys taking the ball off the quarterback. I believe he has the most forced fumbles forced in the last 4 years. So when you're talking about a guy in Haason Reddick that can close out games, especially if you think Aaron Rodgers is going to be healthy, the Jets should have a lead. You need a game closer, and that's who Haason Reddick is. So I think a lot of Jet Nation is mad that this deal didn't get done, and GM Joe Douglas is probably going to take most of the brunt for this.
Lige Douzable with the breaking news. Haason Reddick requesting a trade from the New York Jets. Do certainly appreciate it. A reminder about the first week of the NFL season on CBS and streaming on Paramount+. Notable games include Arizona at Buffalo, Jacksonville at Miami, and Vegas at the Chargers.
And this just in out of the NFL, where the New York Jets have announced they will not be honoring Haason Reddick's trade request. General Manager Joe Douglas releasing a statement on the matter just minutes ago. Douglas saying, quote, "We have informed Haason that we will not trade him, that he is expected to be here with his teammates, and that he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report. Since the trade discussions back in March, we have been clear, direct, and consistent with our position. Our focus will remain on the guys we have here as we prepare for the regular season. The New York Jets will take on the Carolina Panthers this week, week 2 of the preseason."
The Chiefs are coming off back-to-back Super Bowl wins, which is impressive in its own right. But Kansas City also an 8-time defending AFC West champ. It's prediction time as we dive into the division where LA boasts a new head coach in Jim Harbaugh. Vegas made theirs official, removing the interim title for Antonio Pierce. Chiefs are the heavy favorite to make it 9 straight. In terms of making or missing the playoffs, you would have to lay -500 for Kansas City to cash your ticket. All right, time to talk win totals with Pete Prisco and Lige Douzable. So Kansas City has a sky-high total of 11.5 wins, and yet both of you guys are still bullish on that win total. Lige, start us off.
They have to be the favorites for the Super Bowl. I'm not betting against them anymore, Pete. I learned my lesson
But
the
12
last couple of
wins or
years.
more.
They're going over 11.5 wins. I also think this is a down year for this division as well when you look at the Broncos potentially playing a rookie quarterback. The Raiders don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be. And now there's question marks with Justin Herbert. Will he be healthy enough to start week 1 for the LA Chargers? So when you look at this Chiefs team, right, Pete, the thing that's fascinating about this team is that they've been able to reinvent themselves over the years. They beat you in a multitude of ways. Like going back to like 2019 and before that with Patrick Mahomes where he threw for 400 yards. Now they have a top 5 defense that he can really lean on, right? This defense will stifle you. And getting Chris Jones back was the biggest thing for the Chiefs this offseason. We know we're both fans of Trent McDuffie, all-pro year last year. You think he takes another step as well. This defense is stifling. And then Andy Reid is talking about throwing the ball down the field a little bit more. They didn't really do that last year. They went and got the fastest guy in NFL history in Xavier Worthy. Now, there is some concerns because Hollywood Brown did just get injured, and we'll see where his status is when the season starts. And then also with Rashid Rice, we'll see with the off-the-field stuff what happens with him. But I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes in this defense anymore. I think they'll be a little bit more balanced. Run the football with Isaiah Pacheco, one of the best offensive lines in football, and they will attack downfield with Xavier Worthy. I got them clearing 11.5 easy. I think I have them going 13-4.
Last year was the year to get him, and nobody got him. I mean, it was. You saw him stumble through the regular season. We didn't know what that offense looked like. They couldn't throw the ball like they normally do. And that's why last year you got him, and they didn't get him. So they're the favorite again. They're going to win the division. They're going to win more than 11.5 games, probably 13.
Correct.
That's who they are. And, you know, everybody says, well, repeating is tough. Three-peating is almost impossible. But I'm with you. I'm not picking against this group. I'm just not. They're too talented, and that guy is special. And if he wins it, he's in the conversation as the GOAT. 3 in a row puts him in the conversation as the GOAT.
I think it's funny, too, given, you know, hearing from those guys on that team last year saying how unfun it was to play on that team if you were on the Chiefs, specifically on offense. So I'm with you guys. I'm never betting against these guys ever again. If we move along in the division here, let's talk Chargers next, because we know that they had a collapse at the end of the season. Things just didn't look like what we've expected for years with that Chargers team. But right now they're total 8.5. Lige, I see you have them going over that number, but Pete, you're going under. So I'll go to you first here. What makes you unconfident?
Look, I'm a big believer in Jim Harbaugh as a head coach. I love what he does. He's quirky, he's strange, but man, he can coach football. And I think he will get this figured out. I just don't think it's going to get figured out right away. They have some major problems on that team. I do want to figure out the dynamic between Herbert when he is back and Harbaugh, who likes to run the football. Right. You know, you heard Greg Roman raving about Herbert's ability to run outside the pocket. Look, I don't want him running, and if you're the defense, you want him running. So there's a fine balance there. Remember, they came from that Lamar Jackson offense. That's where Roman was, where they ran and ran and ran. Harbaugh, we know, likes to turn and hand the ball to the running backs. So the dynamic between Herbert and Harbaugh is something I want to keep a close eye on, and I think they'll figure it out this year and watch out for him next year.
Yeah, I have them going just over at 9 wins, right? And it's because of Jim Harbaugh. Pete, we discussed this earlier in the offseason. For some reason, he just turns programs around quickly, right? We saw it in San Francisco. That team wasn't a playoff team. Then they go to the NFC Championship game the next year. Then he goes to the Super Bowl. He did it at the University of San Diego. He did it at Stanford. He just knows how to turn programs around. And then he did it at Michigan. He went back to his alma mater, turned it around, and won a national championship there. Now, I'm like you, Pete. There is some concern with Justin Herbert because, to me, he's one of the best throwers of the football. And when you look at this offense, like, is Ladd McConkey going to be the number one guy? Quentin Johnson? I believe they will run the ball effectively and take pressure off Justin Herbert. Now, there is some concerns with him because he is dealing with that foot injury right now. We'll see where he's at the start of the season. But I also like that he brought over Jesse Minter. I think even though they are talent deficient at some areas, he'll be able to cover it up with how multiple they'll be on defense. This will be a team that will be better than they were last year. I got them just going over the 8.5 and 9.
They've got barely under.
They've got a very favorable schedule. But Herbert is the key, though, because he's got to get out there and get right on that number. Raiders number, Pete Prisco's at 6.5, and once again, you guys are splitting it. So you're going over or under?
I'm going under. I don't think this is a very good team. I really don't.
Really?
I think when I look at the quarterback situation, you guys know how I feel about Gardner Minshew. I think he's a backup quarterback, so if he's the starter, that's not great. And we don't know what we get from Aiden O'Connell. I just don't. I think they have some issues. I think there's some questions on the defensive side of the ball as well. They made some nice additions. Getting Christian Wilkins will be big in the middle of that defense. But again, the secondary, the corners, we have some questions there. So I think this is a team that will go under. Whenever you have quarterback situation like they have, it concerns me in a big way, and that's why I'm going under.
I think the pure attitude of Antonio Pierce gets them over, just like it did last year. I have them barely going over. I have them going 7 and 10, right over the 6.5. And yes, Pete, there is some concerns with the quarterback position. Will it be Aiden O'Connell? Will it be Gardner Minshew? I just think that defense is going to run this team. I know you talked about them having maybe some issues back there, but I really like this defense. When you talk about having Christian Wilkins up in the middle, they have a defensive player of the year candidate on the edge as well. So I think they'll be able to get after quarterbacks. Really love what I saw from Jack Jones at the cornerback position last year, and we saw in week 1.
Sun Devil.
We saw in week 1 him get an interception. I just think Antonio Pierce, the mantra, the mentality, the grittiness that he's brought to this team, they're going to run the football. They're going to be physical. Team is going to be led by his defense. They still have one of the best receivers in all of football in Devontae Adams. I got them just going over 6.5 with 7 wins.
Okay. All right. Let's move on and wrap up the division here. We got a chance to finally see the orphan puppies out on the field in Denver. A good weekend for the quarterbacks there, depending on who you are. But in terms of their win-loss here, 5.5 is the number. Lige, I come to you first here. You're going under that number.
I am. We had concerns about, the Las Vegas Raiders in the quarterback situation. Same thing could be said for Denver, right? Will it be Jarrett Stidham? Most likely it's going to be Bo Nix. And there's trials and tribulations with a rookie quarterback. But I'll bring up a point that Pete always brings up. When you look at that offense, who scares you? Nobody scares you. And then on the defensive side, who's playing opposite of Patrick Surtain? There's a lot of question marks, new safeties, new linebackers on that team. So I just think this is going to be a rebuild, revamp year. They're taking off on all that money from Russell Wilson, so it was hard for them to actually bring in new talent. I have them going under, I believe it was at 5.5. I have them going under that.
See, and I'm going to go over that, in large part for the reason you went over with the Raiders, because of the head coach. I think Sean Payton will get the best out of the quarterback, and that will be Bo Nix, by the way. Look, when Drew Brees was in with the Saints, they didn't have any real game changers on the outside either. I mean, Marcus Colston was a good player, then Michael Thomas. They were good players, but they were never burners down the field who scared you. They knew how to get the ball to those guys. I think Peyton will figure it out. I think Bo Nix will be okay. He's not going to be great in his first year, and I think they'll be better on defense than you think. So I'm going with the head coach. I think he'll find a way just to barely go over. They're not going to sniff the playoffs or anything. They're going to be like the Raiders.
Not going to slip the playoffs. Guys, I love chatting football with you both. So much great insight. Lige and Pete helping us break down the AFC West. Here's how the AFC West will unfold in week 1. Of course, everyone's excited for that AFC Championship rematch between the Ravens and the Chiefs. The Chiefs come into that one a 3-point favorite, but excited to see that one. Then you get a little 2-for-1 in the division there. Broncos at Seahawks. Seahawks favored there. And you also get the Raiders at Chargers. That's the one that you get in the division there. Raiders and Chargers, with the Chargers a 3-point favorite.
Bom, galera, Fórmula 1 2025. Vamos ver aqui, né, como é que vai funcionar. E vamos ver também quem são as promessas que brigam pelas vagas restantes. Prodígios da Fórmula 2, né? Acho que assim que fala. Tem Fórmula 1, Fórmula 2, aqui tá Fórmula 2. São cotados para as últimas 4 vagas restantes da próxima temporada. O brasileiro está na lista. Bom, ainda faltam 4 assentos para serem ocupados na Fórmula 1 de 2025. Alpine, Mercedes, RB e Sauber ainda não confirmaram as duplas da próxima temporada. Algumas promessas da Fórmula 2, ele está falando, estão entre os cotados para vagas restantes da Fórmula 1. Entre os jovens pilotos estão o brasileiro Gabriel Bortoleto. Especulado, perdão, gente, minha dicção foi meio falha, na Sauber. Bom, o intervalo de temporada da Fórmula 1 é o momento ideal para o crescimento de rumores sobre o futuro de pilotos e equipes também. Enquanto pilotos experientes buscam manter os seus assentos na categoria, algumas promessas tentam, né, uma oportunidade no topo do automobilismo mundial. Alpine, acho que é Alpine que fala, né, talvez, e Mercedes não confirmaram os substitutos de Esteban Ocon. Gente, antes de continuar aqui lendo alguns nomes, eu já quero pedir perdão por estar falando errado, provavelmente, porque aqui é bem difícil falar o nome de algum jogador ou, enfim, pessoas importantes, né? Porque às vezes tem nomes em inglês, então fica meio... buga um pouquinho na hora de falar, de ler, entendeu? Eu sei que vocês não entendem, dá uma bugada. Enfim, a Mercedes, né, não confirmaram o substituto de Esteban Ocon e Lewis Hamilton, que fecharam com, acho que Haas e Ferrari, né, respectivamente. Os casos de RB e Sauber são diferentes. Enquanto a equipe irmã da RBR manteve Yuki Tsunoda e não definiu o futuro de Daniel Ricciardo, a Sauber assinou com o Nico, né, mas não se manifestou sobre possível renovação de Valtteri Bottas, acho que assim fala, ou Guan Yu. Oh, velho, eu vou desistir de falar esses nomes, tá parecendo um trava-língua pra mim. Meu Deus, que dificuldade. Vou te dizer. Mas enfim, gente, essa foi a notícia. Eu espero que todos tenham gostado e entendido. Não esqueçam de se inscrever. Peço perdão ainda do nome. Um beijo e até a próxima. Bom, gente, o Flamengo é o 4º time que mais sofreu gols de bola aérea no Brasileiro. Somente Vitória. O Atlético de Goiás e Vasco têm números piores no ataque. Fla também não vai bem no quesito na parte ofensiva. Sem vencer há 3 jogos, com 2 derrotas e 1 empate, o Flamengo foi vazado na bola aérea em todas as partidas da série negativa. Caleri pelo São Paulo e os palmeirenses Vitor Reis e Legue balançaram as redes rubro-negras nos últimos 10 dias. Bom, gente, na seca citada há uma partida válida pela Copa do Brasil, derrota, né, por 1-0 para o Palmeiras, mas os números negativos do Flamengo nesse quesito dentro do campo brasileiro chamam bastante atenção. O rubro-negro é o 4º time que mais foi vazado, gente, em bolas aéreas até o momento. Só perde para o Vasco, Atlético de Goiás e Vitória. Todos os posicionados, peço perdão aí pela leitura, enfim. Todos os posicionados na parte de baixo da tabela, no caso, né? Esses outros números da matéria são fruto de pesquisa de Guilherme Marçal, do espião estatístico do GE. O questionado sobre o momento ruim do Flamengo nesse tipo de jogada, Tite disse que seu time está na média quando o assunto é gols sofridos em bolas paradas. É importante destacar que a pergunta foi feita em cima dos muitos gols levados em bolas aéreas. Aí a tabela abaixo mostra que o número é elevado. Aí vou mostrar aqui pra vocês. Não sei se aumenta, acho que não aumenta não. Mas enfim, tem times aqui que mais sofreram gols em bolas aéreas do Brasileirão 2024. Aí tem times aqui, gols sofridos, jogos e gols sofridos aéreos. Enfim, o Vasco tá com 18 gols sofridos aéreas, jogadas aéreas, jogos 21. O Atlético tá com 18 e jogos 22, Vitória tá com 16, jogos 22, Flamengo tá com 15 e jogos 21. Aí tem o Criciúma que tá com 14, jogo 20, Fluminense 14 também, jogo 21, Bahia 14, jogo 22, Bragantino 13, jogo 20, Cuiabá, enfim. E por aí vai, gente, é muita ordem de time. Quem tiver interessado aí é só pesquisar pra ver mais detalhadamente. Mas enfim, gente, essa foi a notícia, espero que todos tenham gostado e entendido. Um beijo e até a próxima.